Welcome back to the Chelsea Blueprint. Well, things have gone from bad to much, much worse. Chelsea now out of the Champions League after a 3-0 defeat to PSG last night, 8-2 on aggregate. I'm joined by Chelsea fan Matisse. Matisse, how are you? Probably as bad as me, I imagine.
Yeah, it's getting to a point of just every day, every waking day, this is the main issue in your life now is Chelsea. It's like everything else could be going fine, but if this club is not even competing at a respectable level, then it's very much mind-boggling what's going on right now.
I'd imagine you're the same as me, as you're getting messages like every day. It feels like this week has been one of the worst weeks in recent memory for Chelsea. I mean, we've had this ownership stuff. We've had obviously 2 defeats to PSG, a defeat to Newcastle. Our captain's injured. Trevor Chalobah's now injured. Malo Gusto's ill. It's the transfer ban, academy transfer ban. It's rough, isn't it? It's rough.
Yeah, it's just one after the next, and the snowball effect is just gathering momentum, gathering pace now, and it's just the snowball is just getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And the thing is with the exit, it's not that we lost, because you can lose to PSG. We've seen us, you know, I mean, our greatest Chelsea team with all of our legends, all of our iconic figures, they only won the Champions League once, which means they lost it 10, 11 times in their career. But it's how you lose. And I feel like we've lost that fear factor. We've lost that kind of respectable traits that every Chelsea side must have and need to be competitive and compete on the pitch. We don't have any of them, it feels, and it's just unrecognisable from even 6 months ago in the Club World Cup final. Now it's becoming unrecognisable from even that, let alone all of the success that we've had in the last, obviously, decade and a half.
I feel like we've become almost the laughing stock at the moment. Like, obviously, historically, we've been the ones laughing at others, you know, the likes of, obviously, well, the less we say about Spurs, the better, but Arsenal, historically, like, we've kind of had the edge on them, and now it feels like they're the ones laughing at us. I mean, if you know any Arsenal fans, it's painful, isn't it, to hear from them?
I mean, unfortunately, I can't go anywhere without even speaking or seeing one, and they'll just bring up this title situation that they're obviously chasing every single time, and they look like they could get potentially more. And you know, a lot of our history that separates us from everyone else is the continental history, the global history, the fact that we have won it all, the fact that we've, you know, won the Champions League twice, the Europa League twice. I think we're dangerously close to having some of that eroded by Arsenal, because we're not even defending ourselves in any sort of way. We're asking others always to do the job for us, and we've been doing that for ages, for 5 years on the trot now, and it's going to catch up to us eventually. And at some point, they are going to do the unthinkable. It's not good enough to always say, oh, they've never done it, so it will never be done. Tottenham never won a trophy before Jonathan Woodgate crashed in a header and the Europa League final against Man United. New stories get written. It's inevitable, unfortunately, I think, in my opinion, because look at even last year, the semi-final PSG. If they had got to the final, they would have won it. There's no way Inter Milan would have competed with them. So yeah, the fact that we're not even there to even stop teams now from recreating history, we're just kind of just participants, is nuts.
And then on last night, obviously, it was a pretty bad night in general, but Chelsea kind of had to go for it. I feel like it's the fallout of the game that's more frustrating than the actual game itself, because there's not a whole lot they really could have done. But the decision, there's 2 things for me that are big from this game, and they're both decisions from Liam Rosenior. One of them is to play Mamadou Sarr at right back, who's never played a professional match at right back in his life. He had Josh Achimpong on the bench. Even Chalobah, he's played right back plenty of times, albeit not that well, but he's done it. The decision to play Sarr there absolutely baffles me. He got shrugged off by Kvaratskhelia for the first goal, and then the tie was done after that. And then the other decision is this insistence on bringing off João Pedro and Cole Palmer and Enzo Fernandez, but also then bringing on Delap and Garnacho. And it feels like when Delap comes on, it's the full-time whistle.
I mean, he lost this game in the first leg, to be honest, for me. It's from the moment that he decided to make a game of the goalkeeping situation and to prioritise passing over shot stopping and cross collection, when we've seen countless Champions League teams that have won this competition, Petr Cech's, Mendy for us, Courtois, Donnarumma, they've always prioritised shot stopping and cross collection, and the goalkeeping attributes and the passing's always come last. We decided to go to the Parc des Princes. Very naive, in my opinion, and a lack of experience at this level to think you can go to the Parc des Princes against one of the best pressing teams in the world, in PSG, where they are relentlessly pressing, and prioritise passing instead of being more direct or being more pragmatic. We should have played the better shot stopper. And when we didn't do that, even though we had a good 70 minutes, the last 20 minutes, 2 of those goals minimum for me is the goalkeeper, being out of position with his footwork or making an individual mistake. So then this tie was already lost before it started. But like you said, when Sarr is bringing the ball out of the sky with that loose touch, the first goal goes to Kvaratskhelia within 5 minutes. The tie is well and truly done. I think after that, all the substitutions are whatever, because at this point, we're out the Champions League. We're not getting back into it. We need, 5 goals or whatever it was at one stage to even get to extra time. You may as well start taking players off and saving them for the Premier League, because we need to make Champions League and we need to win the FA Cup. We've got Port Vale next in the round before the semis. But for me, it's very clear that he's out of his depth already, and that's the honeymoon period is well and truly over. And even with Maresca in big games, I felt like we had someone who was tactically ready to take on some of the biggest and best teams, and he could get it right and really surprise them and really unleash some sort of plan, whereas Rosenior just looks out of his depth. He talks, of course, in a way that's been mocked over recent weeks, but even the writing and scribbling in the 85th minute, when we're done, we're 8-2 down. What could you be possibly scribbling?
Doing them little S, the cool S's from back in the day.
There's people now saying that he's missing parts of the game because he's too busy writing on his notepad. He came in with a very big point to play in player empowerment, calling Neto world class. Garnacho's getting booed because he's so good. Sanchez is world class, but Jorgensen could be my first choice goalkeeper. The lies catch up to you at some point. You cannot continue to keep overestimating some of these players and putting labels and tags on them that are simply not true, just to put confidence into them. Because in the summer, just like every manager, you're going to be asking for certain things. And if you don't get those things, the pressure's going to mount and you're going to lose your head in the press conferences, which we're seeing already. And then you're going to be, moved on because you're speaking against the hierarchy and the regime. So every cookie crumbles the same way. But, for me, it's just don't lie. Just be honest from the get-go. You don't have to. I'm not expecting you to slag off your own players, but just don't call them world class for no reason and create these lofty expectations for these players, because some of them are just simply not going to live up to it.
It feels like a bigger issue with the club on the whole. I mean, we were told last week that you have to bleep this, but it's obvious that Chelsea are building one of the best teams in the world. That didn't look like one of the best teams in the world last night. As you mentioned, Matisse, the manager is coming out and saying, Neto's world class. He's clearly not. Other players that he's mentioned, he's bigging them up way better, to be way better than they actually are. And it all falls under, for me, this umbrella of embarrassment as a Chelsea fan at the moment, because people outside of Chelsea and outside of the ownership, everyone is looking at the club and thinking, what are they doing? It's not making sense. And it seems to make sense for the ownership, but to no one else does it all add up.
Yeah, these guys, they really lack accountability and some sort of reflection, because they really do believe that they are the best in the business. And despite having little to no experience in the business when they came in, they were able to even pick flaws in the previous regime and highlight where it could be improved and where they would take it to not only the next level, but the next level after that. They really lack a little bit of humility. They lack a little bit of honesty. And I think they are happy to be wrong and strong, and they will double down on this project this summer more than they've ever done before. And that's what they do. Every single briefing, every single report comes out when they're trying to save face, when Chelsea are losing a game, or the fans are making a chant in the ground, or the social media platforms are running riot. They'll come out with some sort of report to try and calm down and appease the masses, whether that be a transfer link or some sort of, other means to save face. But it's not going to work at this point. It's very obvious that they are out of their depth as well. And that's why the responsibility lies with them. It doesn't lie with the managers anymore. It doesn't lie with the players. It lies with the people that appoint these people in these positions. They have specifically sought out Rosenior as the next manager after Maresca, and it's not working again. And how can you build a project long term and lack stability in the head coach position to the point where you have to keep recycling and changing the manager every single other year? That is not a long term sustainable project. Even from that basic level of young players need stability. They need someone to guide them, to develop them. You can't have that by changing systems, changing managers every other year because you've got the decision wrong once again. And that doesn't even scratch the surface. You've got, they've got the front of shirt sponsor now, but the one thing you'd expect, incredibly rich, well-connected people to be good at is commercials. And they've had 2 years on the trot where they didn't even have a front of shirt sponsor. That's taken money out of the club. That's a deficit that they'll never get back. And that's a club that already struggles to bring in large revenue because of the stadium limitations that they underestimated when they came in and thought that would be easy to get done. And that's a damning indictment of this ownership. They underestimate, and they lack the knowledge in areas, so many areas. And instead of hiring experts and hiring the best in the business, which is what Chelsea did under Rome, and they brought in Peter Kenyon, we could have gone for a Luis Campos as a sporting director. We could have sought after the best coaches, the best managers, the best individuals in this sport to take knowledge from, to advise and to steer this project in the right direction from the very off. That's not what they did. They looked at profit margins at Brighton and RB Leipzig's and they looked at clubs that we're not trying to become, and that unfortunately that is the crux of it. They haven't aimed for the moon, so they've not shot for the stars, so they've landed somewhere very medium. And it's not the level that this fan base is gonna put up with. I'm sure of it. And yeah, for me, I'm very much done with the ownership. I was done when they sacked Maresca. I thought that was a very clear indication that they had no idea what they were gonna do next. They really can't pretend that Liam Rosenior is ready for this job. Because he's clearly not, and God knows the next hire would probably be Gary O'Neill at Strasbourg. Jesus. So that's what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with a conveyor belt of bring people through from Strasbourg who are not ready, because Strasbourg is not Chelsea. And players develop at developing clubs for a reason, and players come to big clubs to perform and win titles for a reason. There's a reason why these clubs are where they are, and where we should be is not with them. For me, they've run their course now. They're 4 years deep. They don't need any more transfer windows. They don't need any more manager hires and sackings. They don't need any more excuses or any more time. For me, they've had more than enough time. We've not seen enough progress.
The thing I find especially frustrating is, obviously, I'm a journalist on one hand and I'm a fan on the other, so I can see both sides of it. But I've done a lot of research into what's happening at Strasbourg and what's going on over there, and now from a Chelsea perspective you're starting to see the switch in the fans similarly to what you've seen in Strasbourg. I mean, they're obviously in a completely different situation because they feel that they're the little sister to Chelsea, but in a similar sense they also are very strongly Blueco out, all of their fans. And the problem is that we all know that French people in general are very strong in their views and how they get their views across. And the Strasbourg fans have been very strong. They did the whole going silent at the start of matches. People have not turned up for games. They have Blueco out flags and chants every single match. And there's been absolutely no accountability or no change for those fans. So what I struggle with as a Chelsea fan is that it doesn't feel like anything's going to change. It doesn't feel like we're going to get anything from this ownership in terms of accountability or in terms of owning up to what's going on or realising what's going on. And I guess this meeting with fan groups and stuff like that, it was an attempt in some way to try and explain their point of view. You know, they're not going to change their opinion or their decisions, but they at least attempted to explain that to sections of the fan base. And then that has been leaked out and kind of put on Twitter and whatnot. And now it feels like there's going to be absolutely no accountability, at least not with fans, which is what fans have been asking for.
Yeah, it's a double-edged sword on that side of things. I met with a director. For me, I didn't gain anything from that meeting to tell me that we were going to make any sort of changes, make any sort of pivots with any sort of timeframes and timelines of to say, okay, right, we've done this for this X amount of time. Now we're going to try and make adjustments to improve, to try and balance out this team, to try and balance out this club, and steer to more in a direction that most people would normalise as the right way to go. And that's from people in the game, top head coaches that have rejected Chelsea over the years because they don't believe in what we're trying to accomplish, because it's too extreme. It's extremism. And we're seeing that with the recruitment. I think, yeah, double-edged sword. You either put it out there and lose that kind of ability to cash out with them, or you don't. For me, it doesn't make too much of a difference at this point. I don't think communicating with them is all that important directly, because they're not going to change their mind. It's more about convincing you as a Chelsea fan that they are doing the right thing or they have a plan, more so them listening to you, which they shouldn't really even be directly listening to a fan. A fan is no more expert than any, you know, they're not, the fans aren't experts, but who you should be doing is listening to the people within the game who have done decades and decades at top clubs, have experience of being part of winning cultures and winning clubs, and you should be bringing those people in and listening to them. You don't need to be talking to fans. You know, you need to be listening to those people, but instead, and we can see it across hires with the academy, with the women's team, with the men's team, Chelsea are not hiring the best in class. Chelsea are sacking sometimes the best in class and hiring people that they've previously worked with in other clubs down the football food chain. But it's not based on merit, and it's not based on CV, and it's not based on qualification even sometimes. It's based on, is everybody going to follow suit and do what has been done before them and follow the project and the plan? There is no room for disagreement really, or other ideas, you know?
And it feels like, obviously, last night we kind of heard this interview from Enzo Fernandez. It feels like it could all fall apart very quickly. I mean, me and my colleagues were the ones to report that Cole Palmer is interested in a move back to Man United. It feels like Enzo Fernandez now could also make way in the summer to either Real Madrid, PSG, someone like that. It feels like the good players from this project, the Palmers, the Fernandezes, obviously not Reece James, probably not Moises Caicedo, but it feels like those players are feeling a similar way to what we are as fans, in terms of not necessarily having the utmost faith in the project. And if they go, things could very quickly unravel for Chelsea.
Yeah, the only thing I've ever been able to praise them for is the fact that they've been able to renew contracts for key players, and they haven't sold any key players that they bought in. That second part could change. Everybody's down to an 8 to 10 year contract, so it would be very much not in their control for them to leave anyway, unless there's break clauses and certain transfer fees that need to be met for them to go. I don't know if they put that in their contracts. We'll never know until doomsday and they actually leave, and then we find that all out through Fabrizio or Ornstein. But I think with that's hypothetical in terms of if those players leave, because we've never seen it before, so I'm not going to assume. However, sometimes with situations like this, like you said, England culturally is not necessarily a nation right now that's going to revolt over something like this. I mean, the Super League is a very extreme outlier that people sometimes refer to. That was nothing to do necessarily with Chelsea fans in terms of Chelsea fans did not organise that, or did not create that. That was created as an external factor from the UEFA and you know not UEFA, but you know the clubs that decided to try and make a Super League, and it was national news and it was broadcasted everywhere. Every club was angry, every fan was angry, every football fan, you know, and we were just obviously the first ones to turn up on the streets, but that is very different to finding it within yourself to work up that anger, build up that anger, learn that information, and you know all of these things that are going on, and then actually organise and bring it all together. It's a very different ball game. For me, I think, it might have to be 1 or 2 steps back to take 5 or 6 steps forward. If Chelsea don't qualify for Champions League, what will that do financially to the club? The shareholders in the background will be looking at the lack of progress in the 4 years. You know, people say 8 years, 7 years, they'll be looking at, you know, potentially return on investment and you know, what is the selling point now? Where's this money going? What is it going towards? I think the lack of stadium is a massive thing. If you wanted to increase club value, the fact that you've not been able to build a new stadium is a massive, massive problem for Blueco. And I think the fact that that is not moving, that's definitely not going anywhere, because they've not got any plans in place, let alone the build and moving stadium, then coming back and then actually having it done and finalised. They're in a lot of trouble, let alone all the other stuff that they have problems with, like commercials and potentially Champions League qualification, which is insane to think that we spent the amount of money we've spent and we're struggling to compete and challenge for Champions League again.
Yeah, it's very much doom and gloom. Unfortunately, that's all we've got time for on this episode of the Chelsea Blueprint. Let us know in the comments what you think of the state of Chelsea at the moment and what you thought of the PSG game last night. Thank you very much for watching. We'll see you on Monday for the next episode. Thank you very much. Goodbye.